Good afternoon, everyone. I normally avoid talking about religion because religion is viewed as something controversial, although it shouldn't be. I think that we can talk about pretty much everything in an objective, respectful, and intelligent way without hurting or offending anyone. I actually, religion is one of my favorite topics. Like, I love profound topics, even with people whom I've just met. Like, naturally, the conversation gets geared towards matters like religion, politics, and psychology, and a few controversial topics. So, talking about myself and Islam is something that I avoid doing even more for reasons which are quite obvious, because Islam is a religion where, as someone who's born in that, you are always afraid or hesitant that people will judge you, that other Muslims will judge you, and you feel like you don't have the right to talk about it if you're not practicing it fully, things like that. So, for me, my own journey has been quite rocky. There have been ups and downs, and I would qualify myself more as a spiritual person as opposed to being a religious person. I don't think I'm a good example of how a Muslim should be, very honestly, but I do believe that I'm a good human being, that I try to be as authentic and loving and kind as possible. So my satisfaction comes from that. But my point today is, like, I want to share a very special experience of mine. Actually, yesterday I was praying. There was a prayer at around it's called Maghrib prayer. So it's the prayer that is in the evening. And normally it's just the prayer that is most perhaps accessible to Muslims, because most people come back from work, so they are already free by that time to do it. And when I pray, I like to really do it like in a heartfelt way, where I am genuinely connected to my Lord and I feel that spiritual connection. I don't like to do it just mechanically because I have to do it. I try to really get into the mood and try to extract something out of that experience. So, yesterday I was praying, I was feeling very emotional, and it's been a long time that I haven't felt that way. And there are many reasons why Muslims feel emotional when praying. I'm going to get into that into another video. But I remembered one episode in my life that I lived, I think in 2017. What am I saying? 2017. Yeah, that's right. I was on holiday to Dubai and Abu Dhabi with with my family. There was my sister, my brother-in-law, my mom, and my dad. We had gone for holiday, and it wasn't the first time that I had gone to the UAE. So it was my second time probably. And then there was one outing one day where we were supposed to go, like, the safari ride in the Jeep, and then you go to watch belly dancing under the tent in in the desert at night. And it's supposed to be very, very fun, and you get to look at, I don't know, beautiful women dancing, and then there is food served in the tents. It's very touristy and quite exotic. So we were supposed to go for that. My sister hadn't come. She was not feeling well and all. So she was in the hotel and we went. And it was raining very heavily on that day. So most people probably they don't know that even in countries that are super hot, like desert countries where there is desert, it's not always super hot. Maybe in the day it might be hot, but when rain falls and when there is thunder and lightning, it's like quite scary and very drastic change. So that's exactly what happened. There was all of a sudden it was like a transition. Maybe they were not prepared for that. It was raining really heavily and very windy. It was like a storm. So lightning and thunder, I've never seen so much thunder and lightning in my entire life. I'm speaking of the desert, like you're in the middle of nowhere. You feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. There are no buildings. You don't see any civilization. You just see tents, jeeps, people, and infinite amount of sand. I have. It was my first time in a desert, and I have to say that it was very impressive, very, very impressive, because you just become very philosophical when you find yourself like in an area that is so natural and wild. Like, it's not like, I have never seen something like that in my life. You just see it stretching on and on and on beyond where it's going to end. It's just sand, sand, and sand. And for Muslims, for those who are a bit aware of Muslim history, like Arab countries, the desert have been for a long time associated with the history of Islam, with the history and life of prophets, with how and where it all originated. And in the city of Mecca, Medina, like we all know, people used to be living in the desert. Mecca was like literally like a place that was desert. And so what happened? Yeah, so it was, I was in a very bad mood on that trip. I was going through stuff in my life. I didn't want to go on that trip, but I had gone and I was struggling. So I wasn't having a super good time, to be honest. And then, yeah, it started raining. There was thunder. Obviously, the evening got ruined. We couldn't appreciate the dance. Everything, like the dance did not even happen. I think just for a, it just began, and then it was, we had to, everyone had to pack up and leave. It was not a, it did not turn out as it was supposed to. And what happened is that we get into the jeep, in our respective jeeps or vans, and we get back to the hotel. And the driver is driving at night in dark in a desert. There is no road marking. There are no traffic lights. There is literally like no, not a single sign to indicate to you where is the way. Like, I remember this very clearly even till date. So many years have elapsed, but I was in that jeep, and we were obviously, when you're doing safari in the desert, like it's very bumpy ride, right? It's a bumpy ride. It's the dark. You can't see a thing. You don't even trust the driver. Somehow he knows what he's doing, but you are like, you really ask yourself, are we going to get out of there? And there is thunder. Like, I'm not speaking of like that random thunder that you see, like you see one bolt of lightning and then you're just terrified. It's everywhere. Like lightning is striking the thunder and the lightning, like everywhere where you see, like it's just, it's a vision that is very, very unbelievable. And I cannot even imagine how it was back then, but I will never experience something like that again. So what happened? The point is not like, the story does not end here. And somehow we managed to get on the road. Like we drive for a long, long. I don't know for how long we drive like that in the desert. It's rain is falling. It's like in a movie. You don't know what's happening. The driver is really good at what he does. So he knows his way out, and we get out of the desert. We get back to our hotel, and I go. I think I remember I was alone in my room for some reason. I don't know why I was alone in my room. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. Actually, I don't remember if I was in a room alone or I was sharing my room with someone. But all that I remember is that I couldn't stop crying that evening. I just couldn't stop crying, and I felt like I had felt God's presence around me in that desert. I know that it's going to sound cliche and cheesy, and maybe some people are going to roll their eyes, but for me, like it was so real, so true. I really felt something divine. It was not possible any other way. I felt something divine. I felt like that was the power, like the power of God, the magnificence of God, the omnipresence of God, the beauty of God, the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like it it was all around me. I felt it in the thunder, I felt it in the desert, I felt it in the infinite space, I felt it in the darkness, and it was very spiritual. That moment was very, very spiritual. I was imagining, like, what if I found myself alone in the desert one day at night? Like, how would I feel? Like, I would feel a natural yearning to pray. I would, not even a yearning to pray, but I would feel that presence around me, that presence of God. And I've always been very sensitive to that, to, spiritual, something that is really, you can't pinpoint it. So when I got back to the hotel and I was lying on the bed, I was just crying. I didn't know exactly why I was crying, but I felt like, okay, what happened was not something ordinary. It's something that is really, really I don't know, even till date, if I have to rewind and now my memory perhaps is not, I don't remember all the details so vividly, but I know that I was extremely moved, awed, I don't know, a mixture of everything, terrified, and it was something unique because to be in the desert to begin with is not something that you can experience everywhere. We are so used to having buildings around us, but we are not used to having like to being like as if you're in nature and you feel like the nature is unlimited. Like there is no trace of human beings. There were human beings obviously, but the landscape of the mountain, the sand dunes and all of that, it just stretches infinite in front of you as if you're on a planet. So that is something that I wanted to share because it's not always that I feel emotional, that I feel so connected with my religion or spirituality or God. I'm a very pragmatic person. I don't believe every single thing that organized religion teaches us, to be honest. I try to make sense of the world according to my own intelligence. But that was something that was very beautiful, and I think that if someone is telling you that they felt the presence of God in their lives at some point, you better believe them. It's not that that person is going crazy. There is definitely someone who created us. There is definitely an infinite, superior, universal intelligence, and it chooses to speak to us in different ways.